All right. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. And Amy, if you could take the roll call.
Mayor Bogenreith.
Here.
Ms. Hoffman.
Here.
Ms. Berhoop. Here. Ms. Strain. Here. Mr. Tucker.
Here. All right, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. And I'll look for a motion for the approval of the minutes from June 16th.
A motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Commissioner, Department Head, and Community Reports.
Just a couple here. The budget meetings will start in the next couple of weeks. Amy will be reaching out to each of you to ask for a little bit of time to go through your particular department's 2026 budget. It should take half an hour to an hour each to kind of go over those budgets with you. We got word today that FEMA approved $1.8 million mitigation funding for the water looping portion of the North Shore Bypass project. So that'll help us defer some of the cost of getting that water line around the backside of the high school or school district that will be able to provide looping services for the west side of the lake. You might have noticed that dirt work has begun on Union Crossing. I think that started last week, so watch for progress there. And then I just wanted to share something with you, if Amy could put that up, the Facebook stats. You know, we're working with Lindsay Huber, Chris and I, to try to improve the city's messaging and get more information out to more people. And if you look at the screen, you can kind of see what has happened to our Facebook content. And Facebook's only one component of it. It's also a newsletter, emails through Code Red and all that. But this kind of gives you an idea of the work to date that Lindsay's been doing along with Chris. You know, total views are up. The content interaction is up. We've got 55 new followers, and you can kind of just page through that. This will be on our website too, that you can kind of see, you know, kind of some of the demographics of people that are looking at our Facebook information. You know, also a really encouraging turnout for the newsletter. A lot of people have subscribed to that, and that's going out every 2 weeks. So I know one of Chris's main objectives was to improve communication, and hopefully this is a good start to that process. Lindsay's helping us with both the content and the delivery, with the hope that as time goes on that we can bring that in-house and have our staff try to do it too. So.
All right, and I was told there was a social media post today that had both 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock meeting time, so it looks like most of you got the right time, but hopefully there aren't a few that did not. Yeah, there was one today, so, but anyway. We do have a lot on the agenda today, so I think Amy's actually got a clock behind us. If you could kind of pay attention to that when during the community input section, try to keep to that 3 minutes. That would be very helpful. And we will open it up. And again, if you have something to say about a specific agenda item, please wait for that agenda item. But if it's just a general comment, come on up and please share with us.
Evening.
Hi.
Hello.
My name's Ralph Webb. This is my friend Walker. My turn. About 5 years ago regarding fireworks. I thought I made a terrific presentation. I got the answer of, well, we'll take it under consideration, and obviously nothing has been done. With new faces, I'm hoping that maybe we can do something, because I can't do it anymore. I'm a 100% disabled veteran suffering from PTSD. And I'm going to tell you, during the 2 weeks when 4th of July is going on, I'm right back on the battlefield. Now, I can process that and get through it without too many scars, but this guy can't. And I know that I'm not the only person that lives here in town that has a dog that suffers from the same thing. There's a bunch of options that are available. I hope that you'll take an action, put it on an action agenda and try to do something to take action to try to correct the situation, because it's not going to get any better. You know, it is what it is, and it's going to be the same thing every year. So I'd suggest that you put it to a vote for the people and see if that's something we can do. Before I came here 5 years ago, I did some research and I found out there was a survey done by somebody up in Sioux Falls, and they surveyed the top 14 towns population-wise in South Dakota. Out of those 14, 13 of them had banned fireworks from the city limits. They didn't allow fireworks to be set off in the city limits. Now, I think that's got to say something about maybe the direction that we need to go. So that's my opinion. It's not going to be popular, I know, but I think if you maybe take a vote of the people, and if the people all vote for it, that kind of saves your political future, that you're not going to go take a lot of heat for it. I also might suggest that I understand that the mitigation unit from the Isaac Walton League just had a big deal like last weekend or so up to Park Jefferson. And I've heard nothing but favorable comments about that. If you take, and now I'm not saying to do away with fireworks in North Sioux, but what I would like to have it taken out of residential neighborhoods. You know, let them do it somewhere else where I don't have to listen to it, or any of my neighbors or anybody else. A lot of this is all covered in the ordinances, and there's a lot of inconsistencies in the ordinance as far as what fireworks go to, that it's not being enforced. Can't say as I blame them with the chief. It's a nightmare, logistical nightmare to try to enforce these ordinances when it comes to fireworks. There's some things that I don't understand, that according to the ordinance, American Fireworks shouldn't be allowed to sell fireworks where they're at. But yet they're there doing it. And not only are they doing it, but they have a lot right next to their building where they're setting off fireworks the whole 2 weeks that they're open. That's not supposed to happen either, according to what the ordinances read. Some things have got to change. I grew up in a town in New York where we had a lake. We couldn't have fireworks there either. But what they did is they had a local organization, it was called Chautauqua Lake Organization, much like the Isaac Walton League. And what they did is they set up to have some kind of a day on the 4th of July to celebrate. They would have flares that people would put out on their docks along the lake to celebrate. They would do that. They would have a big firework display on the lake, sponsored by the Chautauqua Lake Association. And I think that that's possible to do that here. Don't just take things away from people, but allow them to celebrate, but in a different way, so that it's not affecting all of the people that live there, the residents. I have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I have a right to sit at home and not have somebody come and banging trash cans on my front porch to, disturb me. I have a right to peace in my own house. Somebody suggested that 5 years ago when I was here that maybe I should leave town during that time. That's occurred to me. But they're setting off bomb rockets all around my house. I mean, I come back and find out that my house is burnt down. I mean, I feel like I have to stay there for some degree of safety. So anyway, I hope that you will consider what I have to say, and will take action on it. It can be a positive thing. It can be good for the community. I might suggest, I don't know Renee, I've never met Renee, but I read a lot of her posts on Facebook, and she did some wonderful things out to McCook Lake for the Isaac Walton League. And I think she was involved in this big deal they had up to Park Jefferson. She wasn't?
No, it was the Union County Long-Term Recovery Group. It was
Okay.
their
Well,
one-year
somebody.
remembrance, yes.
Somebody.
Yes.
And I think that's possible to do that on a regular basis, even if it means that the city might have to pony up and, pay for something like that. But to have it a family day, have a lot of the kids come in, whatever, make it a celebration and do it so that we're not taking anything away, we're just giving them something different. It's a positive experience. And that way you have a lot of people that don't have to sit at home and go what I went through, so.
Thanks for your comments, Ralph.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is that possible to put that, make an action item out of that?
It's possible.
Okay. Will you commit to me that you'll do that?
I just wrote down that I think we should do a survey on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry Bailey, Bailey's RV Park on Ohio Highway 105. Where this is going on right behind our place. I've talked before and I will talk again. And some of what I was going to say, actually, this gentleman covered also. We have the right to be able to live peacefully in our home. We have the right to be able to sit out on our decks. We have the right to be happy at home. This place, you got the dust, you got the noise. Like I said last time I came in, when my lot clears out, you guys are welcome to bring your RVs into my lot and live there for a month. Okay? I mean, you can't do anything. I have PTSD. Storms, loud noises really set me off. I've actually gave up and went and started counseling 3 weeks ago. I just can't take it. I'm going insane in there. I lost my son 13 months ago today, and I've been putting up with this since May, June, whenever it was it started, and I can't take it anymore. You guys, you don't give a shit. Or at least some of you don't. I had heard you said that you were not going to make them quit, that they were just going to move them down a little further. That's still in our area. And they will do what they're doing right now. They're supposed to be way north, and they are not. They're way down south, and they're not supposed to be. They will not do it. When we came in originally, the paperwork was signed out. This gentleman, he stood up here, and he said to everybody that this is what they're going to do, and this is what it's going to be. Somebody asked, I don't remember who, well, how do we know it's going to be that way? And he says, because I say so, because I will make sure. He says, and I says, well, okay, but how do we know? He says, I'll put it in writing. He says, I'll stand here and tell you, I'll shake hands. I came up and I told him straight out that God gave us a natural disaster. The bridge had to be fixed. That's going to be inconvenience. It's not going to go on. When they're done with this damn bridge, when a train crosses over, they're supposed to start cleaning up everything they've got stockpiled there, and they're bringing them in really fast right now. That's not the agreement. Whichever, whether it's the train or the end of December of this year, whichever comes first, they are to be pulling out and cleaning their mess. I have quite a few people in my lot that's working there. That train should be crossing over probably by the end of this month. That means they need to start getting their stuff out. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And I have plans to bring a whole lot more. I will bring it at the next meeting. I'll have big packets for you. It's not right. You can see there the dust, and this isn't even a real windy day. I can't leave my car window open in the heat. I can't go out and sit on my deck. I'm stuck in this little trailer. I still got all the noises. There's people that work nights in my RV park. There's people that work nights that's living in the apartments of Brandy Bailey's. They can't sleep during the day. They can't. They cannot. I see the eye work. What, you're tired of hearing it?
No, you're staring me down, so I was
Well,
trying to look
that's
away.
because of the looks in your eyes and the way they're going around is why. And I was told you're the one that says that you were gonna go ahead and give them the go-ahead and just move down a little further. No comments? Did you say that?
Jeff, have you heard a estimated
Remember, I
completion
shook
date for the
hand,
bridge?
The first one I
What's that?
shook
Have
hands
you heard of a
with, and-
completion date for the bridge?
I have not. I heard it was the end of the summer.
Okay.
What's that?
A completion date for the bridge I was asking about.
I think it's into this month. I got a lot of people living out there that's working on the bridge.
I can check on that. I would say that I did get a memo from Sarah. It was a lengthy memo today. I got a letter from LG Everest talking about this particular situation. I've done some research on the history of these properties, how they came to be and that kind of stuff, and I'll be providing that. Now that I have Sarah's email, I'll provide that to you for some background, and if Chris wants to put it on the agenda, we certainly can do that.
Okay.
But I think it's important to understand the whole picture, and so we'll be providing that to you.
When my father-in-law was still alive and he was living out there, and Randy Bailey, and I'm sure several others, they went up because Everest wanted to do this back 11, 12, 13 years, I can't tell you the exact date, and the city said no, and they didn't. So I know you guys can say no. I know it can be done.
But
I mean,
There's some-
it's to the point, if we have to bring in OSHA and everybody else, hey, we're on board. But I was promised, I shook a hand. Because he says that he will make sure they do what is in this paperwork.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Have we been enforcing the ordinances, like with the dust and the noise, and like have we sent somebody out or anything?
This starts at 7 o'clock in the morning, if not sooner, every single day. Every day. They don't miss a beat. Sometimes it's even like between 6:30 and 7, every day. And it's nonstop all day long.
Yeah, they're not supposed to start before 7, and I've been told they haven't been starting before 7, but
Well, I'll start timing it for you, but this, like I said, this is every day, 7 o'clock. Who wants to always get up at 7 o'clock in the morning with all that pounding of the rocks every day, all day long? That's what it's like.
only thing I'll say is, let me provide you the memo and the history, and let's have it on the agenda then.
Well, the
It's up to
noise
Chris.
is loud enough that there should be some decimal deal or whatever that they can check and see that it is way too loud for where we're at. I live across the street from Jerry in the park, and it's just as bad over there.
I know there's been several complaints.
Yes.
By Mr. Bailey, I just wonder if anybody's actually followed up and went out and like said, hey dude, we need to do something with the dust or the noise, and
He's got trucks out there, they're spraying for dust. I've seen the truck this morning, I was out there. And you know, I don't know that this is gonna be a productive conversation, but I would like an opportunity to provide you with the history and Sarah's memo and LG Everest, so what you've heard from the other side. Let me provide you that information and we can revisit this at the next meeting.
Can we get that information also?
Absolutely,
When?
as soon as I get it prepared.
Let me know, I'll come pick it up.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
I got my
Thank you.
number in the office.
I'm talking to the city council here, not the lawyer. My dad used to own the Veterans Park over there in South Sioux City. He used to crush rock in and out. He met all the requirements. He went and got all the permits from the Corps of Engineers. He was going to pump sand out of the river, stockpile it, and sell it in the area. The city got wind of it. They called him up, and they said, well, we passed the ordinance, and you got to pay us so much for doing this. He didn't do it. He went through all the work to get it ready, the city, and it wasn't because it was zoned wrong. It was because the city wanted to stop. You do have the power. Also, the watering. For them to be able to operate without dust, they're going to have to spray the railroad cars when they're unloading them. Every bucket, dust. Then they haul it up there and they dump it, dust. Then they push it up, noise and dust. Every time they move that rock, when they reload it, dust, noise. It isn't just load and unload it. They move that rock 4 or 5 times. You do have the power. Cities have shut people down. Sioux City shut my dad down from crushing across from the Catholic Church. So don't tell me it can't be done.
Hello, Nancy Albright from 221 West Shore Drive. This does touch on what they're talking about. We come before you as community members. We live here. We bring to you in our input our questions, our problems, and our issues. On June 16th, I brought 3 questions. The Schindler research, and I believe I did get a response that you're very busy and don't have time. We need follow-up. We need follow-up as residents living here. Permit fees, I brought that to the attention on June 16. Why are flood victims paying for permit fees? Has that been addressed? Do we have an answer? So do we just come up here, ask our questions, and they just go away? Or forgotten? Or do we continue to keep bringing them up and bringing them to you? These people are aggravated by their dust. I'm wondering, are the permit fees going to be waived? Do I need to say, can I have it as an action item? The garbage, did we get an answer to that? So I'm asking you as a commission, I'm not unhappy with you, I'm not being disrespectful, but when we bring these problems, why are they not on the agenda for the next meeting? Here's the agenda, my questions aren't being answered. How many times should I bring it to you?
They'll find their way onto an agenda at some point.
I'm sorry?
They'll find their way onto an agenda at some point.
Well, at some point isn't it, sir?
I'm trying to prioritize things for this commission to consider in a timely manner. You know, I told you maybe I shouldn't talk, I'm sorry, Chris.
No, it's fine.
I told you at the last meeting, we are not waiving the fees. I've told you that twice now. As far as the garbage thing, we met with the garbage contractor. Vince was supposed to be there, couldn't make it.
Sorry.
The garbage contractor assured us that his goal is to be there on a consistent time every day, but some things hold him against that. You know, sick workers, breakdowns, that kind of thing, but he's committed to the day of the delivery, or the day of the pickup. So on Wednesdays, that's when your garbage will be picked up.
Okay, in your answer on the permit fees, you did not say no, you would not be waiving them. You said it was you looked into. No was not an answer. It should be a discussion, and flood victims here should not be paying for permit fees because they were affected by the flood. So that should be addressed by the commission. It should be an action item. If I'm wrong, somebody say I'm wrong. Who's bought a permit fee here to rebuild their homes? Who's had to spend money to rebuild them when it wasn't their fault? And please don't say it's going to be part of the next item, that we're going to give you free money. So it needs to be addressed. Let's make it a survey. But these questions coming before you should not just be pushed off, and thank you very much. We will look into it. Give us an answer at the next meeting. You may need time to talk, but give us an answer. If I hadn't come up and asked about the garbage, would I still be hanging in limbo? Would I have an answer? No. Give us an answer. That's all we're asking. Let us know you're researching it. We know you're busy. You all work jobs. We understand that. But tell us you're working on us. Give us some hope. Don't just be stagnant. Thank you.
Just a really quick one.
I'm sorry, we gotta keep moving on.
Prioritizing things, you need to prioritize the people that live here, the people that pay the taxes, the ones that do the businesses, all of it. We need to prioritize also.
I just have a quick request.
Sienna.
Is it possible to get spray for the mosquitoes?
Do you know that answer, Jeff?
I'd have to defer to Rusty.
Possible.
Have we done that before, Rusty?
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be nice because they're getting really bad, and that would be much appreciated. And thank you for keeping my driveway open so that I can get in and out now that I just have the one driveway. So you've been doing good work on that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just have an announcement to share that's not my announcement, but this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. out at Isaac Walton League, there is Christmas in July. For the flood survivors, it is a free rummage sale. So this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 8 a.m., 9 p.m., all 3 days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving on to the agenda items. First is McCook Lake Recovery. We have a Penrose update.
John, would
Is that you,
you
John?
mind just talking about that a little bit?
John Brown with Stockwell Engineers. Just a real brief update. We should be finishing up, the contractor should be finishing up the water and the sewer by the end of this week. And then once that's completed, next week they will start working on the storm sewer. And then that storm sewer will probably take possibly 2 weeks or so. In the meantime, we're maintaining the access road that goes in between the school's ball fields. Rusty did a lot of work on that towards the end of last week. We had a lot of rain, as you know, for the last week and a half, so Rusty's been helping with that on nights and weekends. So when we aren't getting there with our contractor to get it straightened up, that's what's happening, is Rusty's taking care of that. He's been doing a good job with that. Our contractor has been very responsive at nights. He's making sure that he's, covering up or making sure he's protecting the trenches, so he's got a safety fence around the construction. There's going to be some private utility work going in towards the end of the week with the gas service, and otherwise, progressing. We're behind schedule, the contractor is. He's behind schedule a little bit, but he still fully intends to be completed by the August 8th substantial completion date. I'd be glad to answer any questions regarding Penrose. Did you want to add something else?
That's good.
Okay.
Thanks, John. The next item is something that the commission has been working on. As many of you know, do you have a comment on Penrose? Oh, sure, go ahead.
One of the things that we've gotten a lot of different communication and kind of back and forth on is the sidewalk issue on Penrose. And we've been told everything from, no, we're not doing sidewalks, to doing sidewalks on both sides or just one sidewalk. This is something that's been talked about many times for many years with several different projects. And my understanding is that in the beginning there was talk about having no sidewalks on Penrose, as it not being a through street, kind of like Spruce and Evergreen, and they don't have sidewalks. But then there's also the talk of having a walkable community, and so that was proposed, and we were told that we could have sidewalks on one side of the street, and I think it was determined that the east side of the street would be the most beneficial side to have it on, just that the way trees are laid out and houses that are now missing. So I'm just hoping that you guys will look at that. I did kind of just look around town, and in this area, Parkside, Melrose, Marie, they all have sidewalks on one side. River Drive has one side. Lake Shore
both in the old and the new section, also only have one side. Suncoast has one side. Alcoma is a through street, and it only has one side. And like I said, Spruce and Evergreen, they don't have any sidewalks at all. So I think Penrose not being a through street, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that we have just the east side sidewalks, if that's a possibility.
That's why John was looking at me for further comment. We will be bringing a change order request to you at the next meeting for sidewalk on the east side. And you guys can, and John will play that out for you as far as positives and negatives to it, and you guys can decide whether or not we want to change order out the west side of the sidewalks.
Just curious, Kathy, do you have a good feel for, does the neighborhood prefer one side, two sides?
We kind of, my understanding, and I have not gone door to door to survey everyone, my understanding was that, for the most part, the street did not want sidewalks. It was kind of an understanding that, if we have to get sidewalks, the east side would be the best side to have it on. And especially with the house change situation now and where trees are placed and that sort of thing.
West side is very tight
Very tight.
to being very close to their front lot line. It's not like they have a big setback that we normally would have. So if there's going to be a sidewalk, and east side has a little bit more space.
So Kathy, did I hear you right? You said people don't want
They
sidewalk?
really don't want any
They don't want
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
No.
They don't want.
And with it not being a through street, that's never been an issue for us. And with the street now going to be a little bit wider, it's not a whole lot, but a little bit wider than it was, we would be fine with no sidewalks. But what I can do is go talk to each and every one of my neighbors and come back and tell you what I find out at the next meeting. Would you like me to do that?
That would be awesome.
I'll do
Like I
that.
said, there will be a change order request, and you guys can approve it or not, but both sides of the sidewalk are in the right-of-way, not on people's actual lot. So, I don't know, what's the right-of-way over there, outside of the street?
60.
Okay.
Yeah.
The right-of-way is 60 foot from edge to edge, so.
But
I
John,
still want to know.
they can't possibly have a 25-foot setback from their property line to the houses.
Not all of them do, you're right.
No.
What's the 60 foot?
The right of way, so it would be 30 feet from the middle of the road to your front property. So, if you'd like, I could maybe answer some of the questions if you want. So, just first of all, just to let everybody know, as part of the, the submittal of the plans to FEMA and Federal Highway, when that was originally a portion of North Shore reconstruct, we included sidewalk on both sides, and right now the sidewalk is included on both sides. So what you're going to be seeing at the next meeting is a request if you want to make that selection to reduce one side of the sidewalk and the costs associated with that, the pros and the cons. Your subdivision standards do require you to have it on both sides, and that's why we've included it in the plans. You obviously can waive that if you would so choose. But Americans with Disabilities Act, we'd strongly encourage you to include them, on your streets. Whether or not you do it on both sides, that would be up to you.
One critical thing is we just don't want it to jeopardize funding.
Right.
So whatever we land on, it should not jeopardize funding at the very least.
Val Hauer for 8 Penrose. She, just so you know, doesn't care if there's sidewalk in there, so whatever. But I am glad to hear about the August 8th. She really needs to get in her backyard again, and so we're hoping it stays on time for the repairs.
All right, any other comments on Penrose? Okay. Next item is an introduction to the homeowner recovery program, Phase 1. The commissioners have been working to try to find ways to not only help out homeowners that were devastated, but to be able to use some of these properties for public benefit. this plan this Phase 1 plan would affect those that had their homes destroyed. So Phase 1 would be those who were hardest hit by the flood. And the idea behind it is that we would actually, what we want to do is send out letters to get interest, to gauge interest from those that lost their homes, to see if it's something they would like to take advantage of. But what it would be is the city would actually offer to purchase those lots from the homeowners. And the amount would be based on the greater of two things. The greater of 2 times that person's pre-flood lot value. So whatever their lot was valued at, assessed value in 2024, which was before the flood, the city would offer 2 times that. And the other option would be the city would pay the 2024 total assessed value, including the house that was there in 2024, less the FEMA demolition cost. So whatever the home was valued at in 2024, you would deduct off the FEMA demolition cost off of that. And I think the FEMA demolition costs range from $60,000 to $80,000 is my guess on most of those lots. So we're going to be sending out this expression of interest form, and we hope that people will fill that out so that we can build a budget to make this happen. And our goal would be to make that happen by the end of September. And the reason for that date is we are working with the Governor's Office of Economic Development on the CDBG funds that are coming into this community. And our hope is that we can use a portion of those funds to do property acquisition. And the property acquisition would be for flood mitigation, infrastructure, easements, right-of-ways, green space, all things that would benefit the general public in the community. And so that's the hope, and what we'd like to do is get this letter out to all those people affected so that we can see if there's interest. Any questions on that? Or Jeff, do you have anything to add?
I'd just like to comment, there have been a lot of ideas that have been thrown around the last few months. This is an opportunity for us to get off the starting line and try to find out how much a project like this might cost, and then try to seek funding, with CDBG DR being something we're going to try to look very strongly at. But the from a staff standpoint, one of the things we want this commission to do is give us direction as to how to pursue this program, and that's one of the things is trying to get a letter of interest out to people to just kind of gauge who would be, out of the people that were completely destroyed, who would be interested in participating in that program. So if the commission is in favor of it, I'd just like to have some direction as to getting out there and trying to find out some of this information.
And in the meantime, we are continuing to work on another phase that would help those whose homes were damaged and would like to rebuild. We have some ideas for that as well, but right now we're just focused on those whose homes were destroyed for this Phase 1. So any questions about that? Can you come up? So they can catch you on the audio, it'd be great.
So I'm Scott Olson from Penrose. So would one have to do that, get that funding before they start? Or would it be something they could get after they've put a lot of money into rebuilding or whatever?
This Phase 1 would actually be to buy them out, and they would actually give the deed to the city. I think what you're referring to is a future phase that might help people rebuild, and is if we can get something in place before the assessed values go back up, we have some ideas on how to do that, and I think we still have time to do that. But thanks for asking. All right,
So, is it all right if I take this step and,
at least get the letter out there to the people so we can build a budget.
fair enough?
Yes.
Just had a question on that. Does that affect the FEMA that the people have gotten themselves? Because you always hear about you can't have double, like even if you had a GoFundMe, you can't be double for, so does that affect like the up to 43.5 that they might have gotten also?
Yeah, I think the
66?
FEMA money was to go towards rebuilding, so this part of the program would not affect it, because this is just buying out the lots. So that it shouldn't affect.
But it'll be the responsibility of the property owners to figure all that out. This is a transaction that we want to make, and if there's something that FEMA wants on top of that, that's something that we're not privy to.
Yeah, and obviously there's mortgage holders out there that homeowners will have to deal with as well, so that's all going to come into play.
Do you expect homeowners to what, pay for lawyers so they understand what you're even giving to them? That's ridiculous.
Next item is North Shore Bypass, finding of no significant impact presentation.
Okay, I just want to go through this presentation real quickly. There's a slide that was included in the meeting packet, and if you could rotate that so we don't have to turn our heads. I just want to we have two other items on the agenda. I want to introduce an agreement with South Dakota DOT, which is a grant agreement. And, you know, I'd be the first to admit that grant agreement should have come a long time ago. But it's being presented now to kind of outline the responsibilities of both parties. It's a common grant agreement that DOT uses on local government projects. And then the second part of it is an agreement with Union County to obtain the right-of-way on West Shore that's between, you know, that encompasses the West Shore part of the project. But first, just a little bit of history. Back in 2022 is when this whole process started. And I think this is probably one of the most important parts for this discussion. You know, the President signs the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2022, which included $17 million for North Sioux City's North Shore Drive realignment project that was sponsored by Senator Rounds. And within that project, purpose was identified as to complete a realignment bypass project on North Shore Drive that would route farm, school, and residential traffic from west of McCook Lake off the existing North Shore Drive. And I think, you know, that is driven a lot by a lot of the comments about the school traffic, and then also other traffic flowing through there from Windstone and points west. You know, the traffic there during school time is very congested, and so I think that's something that the community has wanted for a long time. So that's how that kind of came about. And once the money is awarded for that purpose, we do an environmental assessment is conducted according to the National Environmental Policy Act that looks at all the things associated with this project, and that means transportation needs. That includes traffic analysis, public and agency input, economic impacts, in other words, the cost and what it would save, ecological impacts, social impacts, and public input has been a huge part of this process. Through that analysis, if we go to the next one, Section F it kind of talks about all the different analysis there, but let's keep going. This is in regards to the recreation. The purpose and need is the driving force behind the NEPA decision-making process. And NEPA is a decision-making process. In other words, it grinds through all the analytics associated with the need to compel a realignment bypass project of North Shore Drive that would route farm, school, and residential traffic from west of McCook Lake off the existing North Shore Drive. So all the analysis all the questions that you would have on this project have been reviewed and answered within this very lengthy process. How long did it take, John? 2.5 years. It's been studied. So one of the things, the project need to reduce congestion. One of our goals was to achieve a level of service of B or better on North Shore. Again, the legislative mandate was to complete a realignment bypass around the school and reduce congestion by that metric. Next slide. These are the alternates that were evaluated within the NEPA process. One is the one right adjacent to the school, 2 is the one further north, and 3 is to redo North Shore. Next slide. So these are all the things that were considered in their analysis. As you can see, it covers a lot of area there, including a lot of the questions that have been asked throughout this process. Next slide. The environmental impacts, land use and right-of-way. Now here gets into some of the comparison of alternatives. Alternative 3 does not meet the objective of bypassing the traffic around the school. So that one was not, in my opinion, considered. Alternate 1 uses 16.46 acres of permanent right-of-way acquisition, whereas alternative 2 takes 19.3 acres. That weighs into both cost and farmland conversion. If you look at both bicycle and pedestrians, both alternatives provided the appropriate bike lanes and sidewalks. Socioeconomics, both alternatives, 1 and 2, can reduce congestion, creation of new traffic corridors conducive to development, and there's no residential or business locations associated with it. Farmland, you can see how alternative 1 has less impact on farmland. The noise, the modeling done by South Dakota DOT indicates that no noise abatement is required. The wetland alternatives, again, alternative 1 impacts fewer wetland impacts. Both alternatives have no impact to 303 impaired resources. A stormwater pollution plan will be implemented in either option. Air quality, both alternatives have minor impacts on air quality. Neither alternative was in FEMA designated floodplains. Alternative 1 requires less ground disturbance than alternative 2. Both alternatives are not an impact to threatened and endangered species. Next slide. Both alternatives avoid cultural resources. Both alternatives have low potential for encountering contaminants. Alternative 1 does take up a little bit more of recreational resources in the section 4F and section 6F, and that's basically some of the fencing and stuff around McCook Lake. So alternative 2 was better there. Next slide. Both will have temporary construction impacts. Both alternatives provide access to residents and businesses will be maintained in both projects. Alternative 1 is a cost of $22.1 million. Alternative 2 is a cost of $24.6 million. The travel time is shorter with alternative 1 than alternative 2, which enhances the ability of the project to meet its purpose and need. So then this is kind of just a summary. The alternative 1 advantages and disadvantages, alternative 2 advantages and disadvantages. So through the NEPA process, this was developed, and the determination is build 1 is the preferred alternative, based on all the things I just talked about. And this was, this document is provided on the website. So I wanted to kind of go through that for you to talk about how the alternatives were evaluated and how the preferred alternative was selected. And that, I think you can see the overwhelming advantages versus disadvantages of 1 and 2, namely the $2 million cost difference. Those costs were 2022, those are being updated. So the cost, the amounts are going to be higher than that, but that's what it was when this was developed. So are there any questions on process as far as how the alternatives were selected?
The one question that I would have is, I see you're protecting farmland, but I know behind the school, there's 20 acres of private property. And from what I could see, part of that property will be lost in alternate 1.
But a smaller portion will be lost under alternate 1 than alternate 2. That's just based on the configuration of the road.
But what effect does that have then on the private people who might want to do something with that property?
As long as it's private dollars, that's not a consideration. I mean, if that wants to be developed with private dollars, then they can do that. It's just that the federal government wants to weigh that into consideration. Does that make
So
sense?
you just take the property that you need? Is that how that happens?
Well, just the property for alternative 1 is we need less of it than alternative 2.
I understand that you need less, but how do you acquire that? Do you make an agreement with the private
Yes,
landowner?
that's in process right now where the appraisals are being done and contacts being made with the landowners through Stockwell and a subcontractor.
Does alternative 2 count as well? I mean, like, did it qualify as well? It's just more expensive, is what you're saying?
It's,
Like,
more-
so
it's,
alternative 1 or alternative 2, either one would have worked. It's just alternative 1 has more advantages than alternative 2, is what you're saying.
yes, yeah, and that's why it was selected.
The criteria they used.
You know, because we could also add our own criteria and say alternate 2 still makes the most sense for our community?
Well, I mean, I
Or
think-
is that locked in?
I think you could do that, yes.
I think we could cheapen it up a ton.
But I'd like-
Does it need to be 4 lanes?
It's
Does it
gonna-
need to have a median? Does it need to have curves? Does it, I mean, I think we could cheapen it.
I think some changes can be made, and they can be made at the time of bid. So we know what the actual deducts are. For example, the lift station, which is a portion of this, can be bid as an alternate, and we can take that out of the bid if we want to, if it gets to be too expensive. But go ahead.
Well, no, I was just thinking, like, because when I was going through all this, Lynn here was nice enough to print all this out for me, so I didn't have to read it on the computer, but, like, I wondered a lot of stuff, and understand, most of this was decided before I ever got in the chair. So, now I have questions, now I have concerns, because I'm like, could we not also make this a mitigation issue as well? I mean, why couldn't we not make a raised road and make it into a levee as well? I mean,
Typically
if we wanted
levees,
to.
they don't like car traffic on levees because it degrades the levees. So you can put a bike trail on top of them, but not a
Okay.
road.
Yeah, the levy.
Because I just think if we could make this thing, I mean, what I was going through here, a lot of this stuff looks like, I don't know, do we need all this stuff? I guess, like 4 lanes?
So according to the analysis, this, like I said, the city wanted to get traffic around the school, right? This analysis says alternative 1 has more advantages and less disadvantages than alternative 2, based on all the studies that have been done on it, all the research and all the work that these guys have put into it. If you want to go with alternative 2, I guess that's a possibility, but I would have to defer to the funding agencies. It might be a situation where they say, yeah, you can do 2, but you guys will have to pay for it. Because they found the preferred alternative. The one that has the least amount of impact is alternative 1. And so, you know, you can argue all day about the medians and all that other stuff, but it's all been analyzed. It's part of the traffic analysis. All that stuff is in this document. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, it's just questions I had, because I was like, I'm like looking at it going, I don't know.
All the questions have been
I think
asked.
people are like water, they're gonna travel the least resistance, right? I mean, they're gonna go the quickest way.
Yeah, I would really caution you
I'm
not
gonna
to
be
have
honest
a
with you.
flood.
I live at North Shore and West Shore, which is central, right? I mean, like, I get a lot of traffic in my backyard there. And I don't know that this is gonna matter that much to most, I mean, I'm still surprised I haven't lost my fence or my shed. Like, people coming by there as fast as they are, and we're setting the speed limit at 45 miles an hour on a curve. I don't know. I guess I just don't know why we need all that stuff. It's just something I wanted to throw out.
Go ahead.
Any other questions from the commission? All right. Beth?
Beth Bruning, 3710 Northwest Shore Drive. We are in favor of alternative 2. I have surveyed my neighborhood and my neighbors, and we are opposed to alternative 1. We disagree with the findings of some of the evaluation findings. For instance, the fact that both are just farmland. The 20 acres that you're going to be taking a lot of that property is not just farmland. That's developmental land. We have presented to the prior council the 55 single-family residential development that we want to put there. So it's not just farmland. So it's actually housing type land.
That's what these guys consider it as, so.
Well, I'm just saying, that's why I think that there's flaws in some of the studies, and then who, I know it's NEPA, and it's the people, but it's all kind of the same people who have come up with this. It's the DOT, it's Stockwell, it's then some of the people that Stockwell has hired to come up with these plans, and their reviews, and then what their final recommendations are. Their recommendation from day 1, and all the things that they've ever submitted have all been alternative 1, and the only reason alternative 2 even showed up was after our prompting of why can't we move that 150 foot to the north to allow for housing to be placed on either side of the road instead of just along the side of the school, which then blocks out potential for housing on either side of that. And plus, it's going to take away our ability to develop that piece of property like we have been working on for some time. So I hope that the new members here today will consider going with alternative 2, because I think that some of these things that they have in here are flawed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Olson again, 19 Penrose. 19 Penrose is almost right up against this new development. So is our neighbors across the street. We've gone round and round on this. But alternative 2 would be far preferable. In fact, everybody in our neighborhood signed a note that said that, and sent it to you. And if you're going to develop that area, making one twice as long this way to get to the house versus half the distance this way and half the distance that way is not much difference, if any, right? I mean, you're going the same distances if you're going to develop that area. And my understanding was that you wanted to develop that area, have new houses and so on. And failing that, I don't see why you can't just move that out a little bit. Why is alternative 1, alternative 2 the only ones? There must be something in between if you want to look at the possibilities. But yes, we would prefer alternative 2 as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry, one other thing. Did that study look seriously at the noise it's going to provide for that neighborhood?
Supposedly
Yes.
did.
Yeah, the NEPA process is not Stockwell's process. It's actually a federal government mandated process that they have to do to spend federal dollars. So the process that went through with your project was conducted in the fashion that it has to be conducted in. So all the necessary studies that were listed on there were conducted. Noise studies were taken. We did evaluate all of that. It wasn't us, it was a subcontractor that did all that work. And that information is in the document that's been posted. So I'd certainly encourage all of you to read it. It is very lengthy, but I think everybody should realize there's a lot of work that goes into that, that comes up with this analysis.
Thank you. All right. So are we going back to the South Dakota DOT agreement?
Yep, the South
or
Dakota
did-
DOT
okay.
agreement. So this is an agreement I'd like to introduce to you. It's not for consideration. We can consider it at the next meeting. But it outlines the process. It outlines the responsibility of both parties and the contractor, which is Stockwell. I don't know if you've all had a chance to read through it, but this same agreement is used for things like our bike trail and that kind of stuff. Sarah and I went round and round with South Dakota DOT on a couple of issues. I'm not going to get them all, but cross indemnifications, that kind of thing. And they're just not, they can't do it by state law, I think.
Yeah, that's what their attorney was citing the state law, not being able to give us the reciprocity as far as indemnification in the agreements, so.
But this agreement spells out everything. The city still has some options at bid time. Once the bids are bid out and awarded, if the project is way over budget or way over the original cost estimate, the city will have the opportunity to say yes or no at that time. So I guess I would ask, are there any particular questions about this agreement Sarah and I could answer? I would say, if there is we need to continue to push forward with this project. If the commission is going to want to change directions and go with option 2 or something, that's something we need to know right now, and it's, we need to understand where you guys are coming from on that. We've got 2 subcontractors, Stockwell, South Dakota DOT, Federal Highway, the city of North Sioux City, Union County, all heading in this option 1 direction. If you want to change that, we need to know that sooner rather than later. Maybe it can be part of this agreement, but consideration at the next meeting, but we need to understand that. The reason we have continued on is because the city wanted an alternate route around the school. This NEPA process has identified option 1 as the best option, the most cost-effective way to accomplish your goals. And so we've been pushing this very hard. A lot of people have been working very hard on it. If we're going to switch direction on this now, we need to know right now.
I'd just like to comment that, heading down the one direction, but there have been alternatives all along. We've had the open meetings for public input. Public input's been given. If you read the public comments, there are many comments that support 2, not 1, and against 1. And even though the summary says, oh, it's overwhelmingly for number 1, that's not true when you read
Public
all.
input is only one part of the
When you
discussion.
read all the comments. I understand, Jeff, I understand
Yeah,
that.
I-
And just like when other things come up, like, okay, we're going to do Penrose, and it was said, got to have sidewalks on both, and that's the standard, and that's what we have to have, and then it's like, well, guess what? We don't have to have that. Now we're talking about no sidewalks, because that's what the people want. So I think that we do need to pay more attention to what the people want and the people who live in the community and how it's going to affect property owners within the community. And I'd just like to have you all think about those in your considerations.
You want to go?
All right, move on to the next one, Union County agreement.
So the Union County agreement is modeled after the agreement, is that correct?
Yeah, for North Shore.
For North Shore, when the city accepted North Shore transfer, the difference here is there isn't a cost component to it. But what we're saying in this agreement is if we build this bypass, they will grant us the property, the right-of-way to do it that they currently have, and then we will be responsible for the maintenance of that project after it's done. This again, is just a draft, not for consideration as it hasn't gone to the Union County Commissioners yet, but I wanted it in front of you first before I took it up there and presented it. Have we got this to the state's attorney yet?
Yeah, that has been sent to the attorney. I haven't had a chance to talk with her yet.
So in the coming weeks, I will get this in front of the commission as well. And if they're okay with it, I'll bring it back to you for final consideration.
So we maintain it, but they own it?
No, we'll own it and maintain it,
Oh, we will take ownership of it.
just like North Shore.
Gotcha.
And it's called the West Shore Drive Transfer Agreement. It does include a portion of North Shore that extends west for the project, for the bypass. But most of this would be West Shore, because that comes all the way down Union County jurisdiction to the intersection of West Shore and North Shore.
Any questions on that one?
I don't think it matters if we have questions. I have a lot of questions, but not on that particular,
You're more on the alternate.
yes, I have questions on the alternate. I also have questions on the 21 million that was set out in 2022. Now, everyone knows 21 million is not going to do this project in 25, 26, 27.
Yeah, we're updating the cost estimates right now.
Pardon me?
We're updating the cost estimates right now.
I understand that.
And the city will have the ability, once this is bid, to not go forward if the costs are too much.
That is true.
That is-
Because what's our share right now, 4 million?
No,
Is the city share 4 million, is that?
4 million plus.
17 million is what the,
Right, so
That is.
state's
Whatever.
gonna be
It's
17
about
million,
5 million. no.
and then we got whatever's left over.
Yeah.
That's what I read, that's how.
that's the 1.8 million we just got from FEMA for the water loop. So that was money that we would have had to spend, and now we won't have to. Stockwell and South Dakota DOT.
All right. Moving on. Okay, let's move on to sewer lift stations. Consideration of design work order for Centennial Lift Station and Sioux Laundry Lift Station.
So this was presented at the last meeting as an introduction. As you know, Centennial Drive Lift Station, which used to be called Sioux Laundry Lift Station, is a priority utilities project for North Sioux City. We applied for CDBG dollars for it, and we were turned down. We're hoping to be able to access some CDBG DR money for this, or we'll have to borrow it through SRF, but nonetheless, it needs to get under construction next year. And while we still are entertaining the CDBG DR proposition, I would like the design to continue on this, and that's why we presented a work order for 30% design of Centennial Lift Station. We'd like you to take that under consideration. The amount is $136,857. The rest of it, if we get it into the CDBG DR program, we'll put it into the DR program.
So it's potentially 70% of the design could come from CDBG
Yes.
DR
Yep.
money.
Correct.
So have we had any further discussion with Royal Canin on the Centennial Drive?
Since our last presentation at the last meeting, and then there was a presentation maybe a month ago, we have not talked to them again about that. I know they're proceeding with some additional treatment expansion to their existing facility, and that's ongoing. They are also doing some studies on some odor control, and because we brought that to their attention at the last meeting. Andrew and Jeff were both there, and Rusty, I believe. But anyway, we talked about the concern of the citizens about some of the odor that's coming off of their treatment facility. That's a pre-treatment facility. They have an agreement with us through Sioux City to make sure that that gets treated to a certain level, so when that's discharged into our system and into the Sioux City system, it meets their requirements, and that's being tested. So for them to keep up with their expansion needs, they needed to do some expansion to their treatment plant, and they're also taking into consideration the odor control with that. Now, as far as Centennial, we call it Centennial now because of the street. Was a stepped approach to that, to maybe just do a portion of that. Maybe it was just the wet well. And then we also looked at possibly doing some more improvements, such as a complete rebuild of that. And that's what we're moving forward with, is that, but we can always have that option to ratchet that back. This is just for the design to get us to 30%, and then we can make the decision. Between us, I mean, it's our recommendation that we make those improvements at this time, since we're here, we're doing work in the area. You hate to come back in 3 or 4 years and maybe make more improvements, but it certainly can be done if that's something you choose to do. It's been our recommendation to continue on with the full design and construction, so that we are handling the future growth of that area, not just Royal Canaan's, but the future growth of the entire area. That area is starting to re-subdivide, if you will, and fortunately it's not real wet industries at this point, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be. So we want to make sure, as part of this design, we're expanding the capacity of that so that it can handle more flow and increase the capacity as needed in that area. So that continued growth or expanded growth is being taken into consideration with this design.
Then moving on, the old Miller
Yes.
lift station.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I see more sense in updating Miller.
That's an important one as well, and I wouldn't disagree with you. I mean, I know that one's in very poor condition. The wet well itself has deteriorated considerably. We've got a lot of the concrete on the inside of that wet well, which is where all the raw sewage comes in. It gets a lot of gases in there, and it erodes and it eats up that concrete. We do have some rebar exposed at this point on the inside of that, and so I think it's something that needs to be done soon, and so that was why Rusty recommended it. We, after looking at it, recommended it, and administration is recommending going forward with that as well. The real issue with Centennial, I want to back up to that. Right now, that one is at capacity where it's at. As far as the wet well itself is too small to keep growing at that location. As Royal Canaan expands, they do need more flow capacity just to maintain with what we've got there, not to mention any additional expansion in that area. So, I mean, one thing you want to do is make sure that, when you have the confidence of your businesses that your systems are going to work when you want them to work, and that's important that we do that, and I feel it's important that we make these expansions.
Well, yeah, because from what I see in my 2 years that I've been kind of following everything, it seems like we keep being behind the 8 ball. We're always behind where we should be. Now, will this bring us much closer up to par with where everything should be?
So, I mean, it's something to keep in mind with municipalities. There's a lot of infrastructure out there that is constantly, getting older, and it's always deteriorating. And this, I would say the Miller and Centennial are probably your worst lift stations at this point. There's always going to be other improvements that are going to be needed. Right now, Rusty's done a lot of repairs over on the west side of the lake on some of those existing lift stations there. So I think, you got to realize that there's continuous maintenance, so there will always be additional maintenance. As far as the Miller and, like Miller River Drive and Centennial, they're needed. It's important that you understand that they're needed. Could you get by another year or two? Yes, you could do that if you wanted to wait.
I think North Sioux City's been getting by
Yeah.
an awful long time, and I just think that at some point, if we can figure out how to do these
Yes.
projects, we need to do it now. Don't wait
Yes,
till
I
next year.
completely agree with you.
Years from now.
These lift stations really need to be improved from a capacity issue, but also a safety issue.
Yeah.
These things are old, they're dangerous, and we need to get them fixed.
It makes me a nervous wreck when I think of Rusty
Yeah.
and his people down in a hole. I just...
That smells.
That really bothers me.
It's nasty.
It is. I mean, I would take a tour just to kind of peek at it.
I got the tour, it's nasty.
Okay. And, I mean, I just think that we need to be looking at,
Yeah.
how do we get these things out of a 30-foot hole? Or how, I mean,
And that's
you know,
really
at
what we're
least-
doing with these, the new plan that we've been doing, what we've been designing for Rusty and, based on his confirmation that he likes this, is our submersible systems, which means these pumps actually get submerged down really deep, but they're on a rail system, so it's just a matter of hooking up to a chain at the top and then hoisting that pump up above ground, and he can work on it above ground, and then, take it into a shop and work on it, bring it back, quick connect, drop it back in. So these systems that we're designing today are very good systems. They're still pumps. They still go down. We all understand pumps only last 15 to 20 years, and so we always got to be maintaining them. And as far as the lift stations goes, the can itself, where all the raw waste comes, we've got better technology today, so we line those systems, we line that with a poly. So basically, the gases can't eat the concrete as easy as it could back in the day. So like the Miller lift station didn't have a liner. If it did have a liner, it was a cement-based liner, and it deteriorates over time, versus the poly liners can certainly deteriorate because there's still gaps where things can get there, but the longevity of those, that liner is so much better than just raw concrete. And you'll see that on the presentation a little later.
So on the Centennial lift station, if we could get that work order under consideration, would be appreciated.
Yeah, so we're looking for
So moved.
a motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion to approve the Centennial Lift Station work order to keep the project moving forward pending CDBG DR funding.
Yeah.
And so we got a motion from Lynn, second from Julie. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So I'd like to talk about the River Drive lift station now. We got two parts of this on the agenda. One is introduction to another work order for 30% design under the same rationale as we talked about on the Centennial lift station. And then the second part of that equation is we'd like your consideration for the River Drive state water plan, so we can get it on the state water plan to make it eligible. That's just an introduction as well. We'll bring that back for your final approval at the next meeting, but John will kind of go through some of the preliminaries on that.
So if you want to go advance a little bit there, Amy, that'd be great. Maybe bounce past that and even to the next one where we talk about could you rotate that for me? So the River Drive wastewater lift station is, as we all know where that's at. It's down by the liquor store at the corner of, River Drive and Military Road. Thank you. And so that lift station currently is housed in a small area and on the north side of the road, and I'll show you a little exhibit on that at the end of the presentation. But this lift station has been in place for some time. You can see the proximity to Military Road and River Drive where that's located. You know, it's going to be very difficult to fit it on that location, so we're going to be, you know, considering alternative locations. We still could put it in that existing location, it's just very confined. And so we want to make sure that we consider all alternatives for future maintenance of that lift station as we go forward. So with a little background on that lift station, the original construction was sometime in the 1970s. The force main was replaced and a new dry well in about 1993 and rehabbed the older dry well in 1998. So that existing can, if you will, or I call it the wet well, where it receives all the raw waste, has been there since the 70s. So it's been there a long time. It's served its useful life. We're deteriorating the concrete on the inside, but this just gives us a little bit of history of what's happened. So there's been some rehab over the years. There's been some rehabilitation to the older dry well in 1998. Some smaller additions over the years, a chemical feed, a sampler, and a flow meter. We do plan on utilizing some of the new flow meter that was put in last year. We're planning to reuse that, so it isn't like it's wasted. Rusty had to replace that last year, so we're going to be reinstalling that one. The generator as well, we're planning on reusing the generator, assuming the size is adequate. We do believe it is at this point at the early stages, so we plan on reutilizing that. And we plan on reutilizing the existing sampler and chemical feed. Now, this location, if we end up going in this location, obviously we can still utilize the existing building there. And so the real costs associated with the existing location is just the bypass pumping. So we would have to set up a temporary bypass pumping for this location just to rehab and rebuild this lift station in this location. And that's very costly. So we want to consider alternatives to that and making sure that this is the right location for this lift station. And so with that in mind, we'll consider that as part of the process. As far as the state water plan and wet well, as you can see here on this next slide, maybe you can't, sorry, lost it. But there's the larger can there is basically the wet well. That would be what's needing replacement the worst. There you go. If you can get that on color and back. Some of the next slide, if you pan down a little bit, Amy, this is it's a very confined space. It is confined space. It is dry down in this the pumps where the pumps sit, but it is a confined space where you have to make sure your oxygen levels are correct. When Rusty sends someone down there, you've got to have the right equipment on so that we're not getting sewer gases, and you could die very quickly if you get caught in that. So that's important for us to make sure that we're in an environment that Rusty's staff are safe so that they can function properly and they can continue to do the maintenance. So this is a picture of that. It's not a very good one on black and white. But at the next slide there you can kind of see, this is a picture of the wet well looking in the access hatch. You can see inside there, it's hard to see it, but you can see the concrete's broken up quite a bit in there. Well, that means it's just deteriorating. It's trying to go back to its natural state, which is gravel and a little bit of cement and stuff. And so it's trying to crumble. Off to the right-hand side is a closer up picture of that. You can see that should have been smooth. The next slide illustrates that same thing. Where on the right side is you got your pitted concrete that's in the wet well that's exposed to all the gases versus concrete exposed on the left-hand side of that is concrete that has not been exposed to the gases. So it's in obviously a lot better shape, and that's what it should look like. And with the new system, we'll have basically a liner that would be inside that well so that it just, you know, preserves that concrete a lot better. They would be submersible pumps. The control building and the electrical gear would be new. We would try to reuse, like I mentioned, the meter, the chemical feed, and the generator. The pump capacity would be increased. We would try to increase the capacity both for future expansion of the industrial park up to the north, as well as the Centennial Lift Station. If that gets expanded, that all pumps down to this location. So we need to, whatever we do there, we got to make sure we're expanding this lift station adequately to handle that. And so that would all be taken into consideration with this design. With that said, this project is somewhere close to about a $5 million project. As we get into the more detailed design, we'll be able to fine tune this and refine this cost. We've got a pretty substantial contingencies built into that, it's simply because of the unknowns going into it at this point. And so with that $5 million price tag, you know, we would be looking at building this next year, and that would be an all-in cost. That's your design services, that's your construction cost, that's all in. Land acquisition, if you have to buy land to move that, it's included in here. And then the next slide just gives you a better orientation of where that existing lift station is located. And you can see how that's pretty tight in there, in that location. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions if you have any.
Could you talk a little bit about, first of all, one of the advantages of trying to get this into the CDBG DR program is if we can't get it into that, we're going to have to borrow most of this money. And yeah, we can set up the charges and the surcharges to penalize, or not penalize, but charge the bigger users more and all that other stuff. But if we can't get this through the CDBG DR, we're going to have to borrow it, and then that has to come from the ratepayers. So it is our hope that these two projects can be funded by CDBG DR, and that will benefit all the ratepayers in North Sioux City. The second benefit to trying to do these projects, bringing them forward kind of parallel, is that we can take advantage of some economies of scale. And John has provided a discount. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we would like to, to us, there's a lot of benefit in having a single contractor from our perspective. You could save a fair amount of dollars if you were to bid this as a single project versus two projects. And the reason for that is because you have a single path forward instead of two paths forward. Right now, we're moving forward with two paths forward with the design. But we would like you to consider bringing that back into a single bid package, single project. We'd still keep the funds separate so that the state has all the funds available that would be kept separate. We've done this several times. We feel that there could be about an $85,000 savings on our fees just because this would be going forward as a single project instead of two projects. And the reason for that is just our inspection time, our time that would be on the job doing the observation. We'd have one contractor that we'd be dealing with. As you see all the pay requests and the change orders coming forward, if we have two contractors, we have twice as much paperwork. And so this just would save you a fair amount of dollars if you want to do that.
Not to mention one set of specs and plans and specs
Right.
and stuff. So there's going to definitely be some benefits if we can push these two projects forward at the same time and try to push them towards CDBG DR.
What are the odds of getting these two into this grant we're talking about here? 60-40?
That's a good
Yeah, it's probably 60-40. Depends on how hard we push. And what else we have to spend, if this land acquisition plan comes forward, the bypass, this project, all of which have a component of the CDBG DR to them. It's just going to be a valuable tool, and I think the comment period on the action plan is done July 11th, I think, very, very soon. Mm-hmm. And then once they submit that action plan to the feds and that gets back to them, so money could be available come August or September. So yeah, it's very important that we get this into the CDBG DR.
John, can you do me a favor and
Sure.
add a line item for evergreens to go around all our lift stations that are so beautiful?
Yes,
That'd be awesome.
I would love that. Rather than that white fence, or
That also
on some of
saves
them.
us work because Vince and I were going to be charged with trying to do something with the current lift station.
Some of them are pretty tight quarters, so anytime we have a new one, we'll certainly take that into consideration. Great idea.
If I were going to beautify something, it would be that gigantic concrete storage area that's just across the street from me. Pretty ugly.
Yes.
They all need evergreens.
Yes, we can do that.
All right. Update on major industrial users? Permit renewal? Thanks, John.
Yeah, so first, thanks for allowing me to be here tonight to talk about the permit renewal process for our significant industrial users. Every 5 years, the 7 significant industrial users in North Sioux City are required by the city of Sioux City to complete a new industrial user permit. In North Sioux City, we have 7 of those users: Royal Canin, Sioux Laundry, Res, Nutrifirma, Fimco, Hepar, and Interbake. So we've been going through the process, working with our industrial users in the city of Sioux City to get those renewals completed. This is it's an important process for several reasons. First and foremost, it's necessary to ensure that what the industrial users, essentially what they put down the drain, is not going to adversely affect the critical infrastructure in North Sioux City and the city of Sioux City. And it also clearly sets the limits for the substances that is entering the system, as well as it makes clear what's prohibited. So, you can't send down the drain explosives or any obstructions or pollutants, things like that. So it really clarifies that process. And it also is important because it shows the flows which the major industrial users are planning for. So we get those numbers, and then the city can then plan for its capacity, its future infrastructure needs. That's something that, it's a pretty extensive process that all the major industrial users they've provided a graph, and it shows how much water per day goes into their facility and then where it goes. So does it go into a product? Is there evaporation? Does it enter to the system? So then we can set a baseline in terms of, okay, where are they at now? Where are we at now with our infrastructure? What's going to be needed here as we plan out in the future? And then it sets that baseline, so if there's going to be a major expansion or a major increase in usage, then once they hit it, like if a company's going to hit a 20% increase, they would have to notify the city of Sioux City, who would also notify us. So then we can plan and be aware of what's going on. Typically, probably are going to know that anyway, but this helps formalize that notification process. So it's an important, the permitting process really is pretty critical. It also lays out all of their reporting requirements. They have to report so often, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, depending on what the reporting is regarding. It also lists some of the notification requirements, enforcement, some of the legal aspects to the permits. So it's a critical process that we've been going through. As mentioned, there's 7 significant industrial users. 6 of the permits have been executed, so they've been signed by Sioux City, North Sioux City, and returned to the industrial users. There's 1 who their permit, it doesn't come up until September, so we'll be working on that permit over the coming months, but I anticipate it being fairly straightforward. So we're still working on the 1. As we look ahead, the city of Sioux City is going to allow us to be involved with the inspection. So I don't know if that's been done in the past or not, but Rusty and I will be involved with those inspections going forward. Those are actually going to be starting this month. So I believe we have a couple coming up this month, and they'll continue into the fall until all 7 are completed. And the city of Sioux City has been really good to work with throughout this process. They've included us on So I wasn't expecting that. They've included us on all the communications that they're having with our industrial users. If there's any little thing that they're noticing that's going to the system, the temperature, the pH, they're notifying us right away, and so we're involved in those communications. So we know what's going on in our community. To my knowledge, that hasn't happened in the past and is going forward.
Yeah, under the new agreement, the city of North Sioux City is going to be much more involved in the process between, with the heavy industrial users. We're going to be billing them for loading and for the flow. We'll be charged with the fog, fats, oils, and grease monitoring and that kind of stuff. So I wanted Andrew and Rusty to be involved in this new permitting process moving forward. As I would expect, in the next 12 to 18 months, we'll be involved in the billings and other regulatory requirements.
Yeah, in terms of billings, they thought probably this fall it would start. We'll see. My understanding is it's been in the talks for a while, and the switch hasn't happened yet, but when it does, we'll be ready.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Any other questions? All right. Moving on to agreements, introduction and possible action on the Woodbury County Dispatch Agreement through Resolution 2025-08.
This is a 28E or interlocal agreement that has been in place for quite a number of years with Woodbury County Information Communications Commission, which is a collaboration between Sioux City and Woodbury County to provide dispatch and information services for law enforcement, fire, and emergency personnel. So essentially that communications traffic is handled by them, and we have a contract to provide payment for those services. This was a renewed agreement that extends the agreement out another 5 years through 2030. And it does not have any changes in terms of the amount of compensation or what you pay for that. It's just simply extending that out and updating a couple of history terms or changes in that past. So I believe that's something that's been in use for quite a number of years, and it's been a good resource for everybody involved.
Well, I've been here 30 years, and we've used Woodbury County for 30 years plus. That's our 911 system for ambulances, fire, police. They all dispatch out of Woodbury County. So that's kind of where we're at. I've been doing it, like I said, a number of years. It's just, like anything else, it's just a service that I believe is top-notch. So.
I put this on the agenda as either an option, I could bring it back at the next meeting, or you could vote on it, on the resolution today. But it's an annual, not an annual, but we renew it every 5 years, so I don't know that there's a whole lot of debate left on it.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution extending those services.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, introduction to agreement with civil engineers for water sewer operational assistance.
Yeah, this is a concept that I'd want to run by you and see where you guys are at with it. This agreement kind of outlines a process where CEC would provide us licensed operators to supplement our licensed operators. We're losing one of our licensed operators next January, or this coming January, to retirement. And as one of the things that I really want to do with our staff is to get more depth on the water and sewer licensing and operations. Rusty is, he's got all the licenses necessary, but he's one guy, and we want to try to broaden that and deepen that bench a little bit. But it takes some time to train and get people on board. And so this agreement with civil engineers and RP constructors would provide us licensed operators to assist Rusty on various tasks. They could take over when Rusty's not available or when your other licensed guy isn't available, right? Jamie, or what's his name?
Larry.
Larry. I thought there was one other one. Jesse has a class 1. Yeah. But that would provide us the depth and also some technical expertise on operational efficiencies.
But this is gonna train someone to, like, we're losing a guy, but this would train a new guy for Rusty, right?
This will take the place of a trained guy until we can get somebody in here and train him and licensed up to do it. RP and civil engineers will have, they have some licensed operators in Iowa. They're working on the reciprocity licenses with the state, which will do that in the fall. But I wanted to bring this forward. And it's based on the number of hours we use. So if we don't use all the hours, we don't pay all the costs. But I would really like to get them in here and familiarize them with the operation of our facilities so that they can help Rusty in times of need. With the ultimate goal of this contract will fade away as our staff rises up. So I'll bring it back for, if you have any questions about it, read it, and if you have any questions about it, let me know, and we'll bring it back for further discussion at the next meeting.
Okay. Go ahead, Julie, if you had.
Well, I just think it's really important that we keep all of our certifications up and pursuing this contract, because our team works 24/7, basically. I mean, somebody needs to know what's going on all the time. Even on holidays, they're working on these pumps, they're filtering things, they're monitoring all this stuff. And we just need, like Jeff said, that depth of expertise and a couple more bodies to help out with that.
Yeah, ultimately, I'd want 2 more Rusties, 2 more class 2s.
Rusty's got to have a day
I
off.
mean, not the personality part.
That'd be tough to get.
Not the personality part.
But that's what our long-term goal is, or medium-term should be.
Okay. All right, moving on, appointment to the library board.
We had an opening for the Board of Trustees for the library that is designated to be someone that's from the commission. And so I've talked to Leanne about this, and she'd like that to start, to be a new term with this appointment. The appointment is for a 3-year time period, but because it's connected to service on the commission, the appointment would extend for as long as that person is still a member of the commission. So I know a number of you have terms that are less than 3 years. If someone would to be appointed, they would only serve as long as they are a commissioner. If you don't choose to run for re-election or are not re-elected, then that would become a vacant Board of Trustees position that we would need to reappoint from the commissioners again at that time. So this would be for a 3-year term, subject to being a commissioner for that time period.
I would like to nominate Jessica Strain to be the representative from the commission.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, Jessica, you're on the board. Next item, renumber resolution 2025-06 to 2025-06B. Is that something?
I'm confident this was probably my error in drafting, and we never caught it. So they
it's
did afterwards, which is
Yes,
good.
we just doubled up on a couple numbers, or on just this one number, I guess.
Okay.
Just need to.
I'll look for a motion to correct that.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
We do.
All right, moving on to approval of the bills.
6.
Gotcha.
I'll motion to approve payment of bills.
Second, okay.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, finish.
That's all right, go ahead.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Someone.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right.